Every crash is painful, more so when there's loss of priceless lives of our brave air warriors. But what are lessons learned and steps that must be taken to avoid future crashes? Is it time to retire this aging fleet that's repeatedly been upgraded and likely to undergo another upgrade? Joining me on this India Today special broadcast is Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor. He's former Director General of Flight Safety and Inspections. Also with me is Sandeep Unnithan, my colleague and someone who covers aviation very closely. Air Marshal Kapoor, fighter flying is inherently risky, but 3 crashes in under 6 months, 3 fatal. Your initial assessment, sir, are we flying these aircraft way beyond their use-by date?
No, I don't agree here that the aircrafts are old, because for benefit of your viewers, the Royal Air Force, the United States Air Force, the French Air Force are flying fighters which are nearly 4 to 5 decades old. It's not the Indian Air Force that is flying the aeroplanes which are, old age-wise. Now, these aeroplanes have gone upgrades in the process and have been upgraded Darin 1, Darin 2, Darin 3. And this today's particular accident is very, very unfortunate. And to lose pilots is more painful, because not only the family, the squadron, the whole system gets, a big shake-up. It is a time, when everybody, each pilot fraternity of the Indian Air Force, especially, feels very, very connected. And when
Yes.
you carry the mortal remains of your near dear ones on your shoulder, there can't be a worse feeling than that. And I've been covering that in time and again. Now, there could be 3 reasons for these accidents. Firstly, it was at a low level training mission. The
Yes.
Jaguars, like you covered, are meant for this thing. So, though it will come out of inquiry, I am not aware and privy to any of these reasons. But it could be one of the 3. It could be either a bird hit, or a technical failure, or a CFIT. Now, one of these is a reason why. But what surprises me most is that the height may have been low, and the reaction time to eject. Generally, in case of any contingency and emergency, the pilots do give a call and either ease up when the speed is high to gain height and safely eject. But in this case, the pilots could not eject. So I'm not aware of the reason what actually happened. But this is the conjuncture which I draw from this accident.
I know, because it's very painful. We are told one of the mortal remains was still strapped to the cockpit, is what we are told. With Jaguar, since it's a deep penetration strike aircraft, to evade enemy radars, it flies almost at treetop level during some exercises and operations, as Air Marshal Kapoor and Sandeep will tell you better. CFIT, for the benefit of our viewers, is controlled flight into terrain. And Sandeep, that's truly very, very painful, because you're an ultra high speed, you have very little reaction time, and at those 800, 900 kilometers per hour, maybe even more, you just ram into the ground because you're just flying treetop level. So very little reaction time.
Absolutely, Gaurav. And as you, began your show by talking about how, military flying is inherently risky, flying Jaguars is even riskier because of the reasons that you mentioned. The fact that, A, the aircraft is flying at just treetop height, and that is its strength. It is a deep penetration strike aircraft. It flies very low. It comes in low fast. It carries out the bombing missions, and it leaves very quickly. So that's the advantage of the Jaguar, and that's the reason that the Indian Air Force purchased it. It's practically our only such aircraft that we have, and we've been operating them for about close to 5 decades. Now, that is it's the second largest number of aircraft, fighter strike aircraft that the Indian Air Force operates, after the Su-30s. And 6 squadrons, 100 plus, Jaguar aircraft are in service. And the string of crashes, 3 of them in less than 6 months, and most importantly, Gaurav, the loss of 3 very brave air warriors, that is something that, will lead to a lot of soul searching in all of these accidents. Extremely tragic as they are. A loss of life is something that, it affects all of us. Every Indian who's watching this will absolutely want to know why, what happened. Did we give our pilots the best machines? What more can we do to ensure that such accidents never happen in the future, Gaurav?
Air Marshal Kapoor, they've undergone multiple upgrades, newer avionics, newer systems likely to undergo more upgrades. We are told would remain in service for another decade, if not a decade and a half. Um, are these the best that we should be flying, or are we flying them because our squadron strength is already down and we cannot afford to get rid of another 6 squadrons? In your appreciation, sir?
Mix of both. We are planning to phase out these aeroplanes, like if I recall, between 2028 to 2031, 2032, in that band, the Jaguars. The delay has primarily come in because of LCA not coming in time. So the authorized strength is 42, but the actual requirement on two fronts is much, much more. And we have reduced to about 30 to 31 squadrons. So there's a huge gap, and these aircrafts have been upgraded. The weapon systems have been upgraded. The avionics have been upgraded, but primarily the systems and the engines are not as latest as
Wow.
what it should
Yes.
be in a conventional aeroplane. And the gap is increasing with our adversaries as far as the tech goes, as far as the bench strength goes, as far as the numbers go. So I've been speaking on a lot of forums on this till we get our AMCA, which you have covered, I have covered in your program, slated to come by 2034, 2035. This period of 8 to 10 years till we, come in, and lot of effort is being put in by our agencies to develop our own Kaveri engine and manufacture our own systems which can, raise the indigenous level. But I feel personally that this period we should catch up by inducting something off the shelf and integrating or modifying it to our requirements, because it is
Okay.
like a pole vault. You'll have to reach there by 2034, 35. At this
Yes.
pace, the gap for next about 8 to 10 years is quite large, both
Okay.
in terms
Sandeep,
of the numbers and the tech.
and if time permits, both you and Marshal Kapoor, Sandeep, do we need more simulators? Simulate that for those altitudes, for treetop level, so that use these aircraft for flying, but for training, for more sorties, rely more on simulators.
Yeah, absolutely, Gaurav. I think you do need simulators, and we need to increase the pilots' training on these simulators. But that can only do so much, Gaurav. The fact is that these are aging aircraft. We've never handled aging Western aircraft. We are very good with handling aging Russian aircraft, but aircraft of this vintage, they were all more than 4 decades old. And when aircraft get older, then obviously the pressure on maintenance increases considerably. As the Air Marshal mentioned, that the Indian Air Force is not alone in flying old Western aircraft. The Israelis do that as well. They've been flying their F-15s for almost half a century. And there is possibly lessons that we can learn, best practices from possibly the Israeli Air Force, other countries that have used such aircraft for over 4 decades. The idea is we are in a bit of a mess, Gaurav, with the numbers. Like, the Jaguars are 1/5 of the Indian Air Force. There's no way you can retire them. And as the Air Marshal again mentioned, the fact is that we were expecting the LCA to come in numbers, and that also ties into what the Air Chief Marshal AP Singh has been literally shouting for the last couple of months, that we don't have those numbers. And we are in a bit of a mess. We are in a very, very serious mess.
It's a big mess, but how do you ensure that your air warriors, Air Marshal Kapoor, more simulators, simulate more situations, save pilots, save aircraft? God forbid, should the balloon goes up, and given the situation right now, that may happen sooner than later.
Absolutely correct. Today, say for a Boeing and an Airbus, a commercial aeroplane, about 98% of flying, or more than that at times, is done on the simulators. Today, we have state-of-the-art simulators for Rafales and other modern aircrafts. But like Jaguars, when they came in the early 80s to our country, the simulators do exist. The simulators do this thing, but it is not of that, vintage
Real
where
quality,
it
yeah.
can take on, and no other country is flying, so the OEMs do not invest that kind of an effort in upgrading those simulators. The modern simulators, if you go and have a look, there is absolutely no difference between actual flying, and we are right here where we can simulate all sets of emergencies, all sets of exercises, missions, in near real time on a simulator, and that helps before every mission, certainly.
I will let that be the last word on this part of the show because this is truly tragic. It's truly heartbreaking. We've seen how good our pilots are, how good our Air Force is, and it's truly heartbreaking to see loss of life this way. Because anyways, the Air Force says the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. We cannot afford to bleed like this. We cannot afford to lose a single air warrior. Priceless, truly priceless. To both my guests, many thanks for joining me. That is all I have for you on India First this evening. Let's hope a solution is found as quickly as possible.